everyone, I'm Michelle Thomas. I'm a housing development project manager with the Cuyahoga Land Bank. I'm going to share a little bit today about how we've used realtors to list our properties and what we've learned from doing that. So first, for those who aren't familiar, the Cuyahoga Land Bank is a private nonprofit corporation. Our mission is to strategically acquire properties, return them to productive use, reduce blight, increase property value, support community goals, and improve quality of life for county residents. For a while, when we first started, the focus was really more so on demolition. We had a lot of properties that were coming through that were distressed and in need of immediate demolition. But more recently, we've focused on real estate development, including residential renovation and new construction. So that includes goals of creating opportunities for homeownership, stabilizing neighborhoods, increasing tax values, promoting healthy communities, and advancing community goals. I think to date, we've done almost 50 new constructions. I think we're approaching 150 renovations, and we've done hundreds of deed and escrows as well, which I'll explain more in a little bit. So our main programs consist of deed and escrow, which is our DIY kind of purchase renovation program. We also do some affordable housing, market rate renovation, and new construction. And I put Realty Reimagine on here too, because that's our in-house real estate brokerage. You'll hear more about them later, but they are a big part of our real estate development efforts as well. So our deed and escrow program, like I said, is our DIY renovation program. So basically, we take in a distressed property. It's sold as is. The land bank provides a list of repairs that need to be completed, and the buyer is responsible for completing those repairs, but title doesn't transfer until the repairs are complete. And I think most land banks have a program similar to this. But basically, we sign an agreement with the buyer to make those repairs within 4 to 6 months. And we do allow the buyer to complete some of those repairs as well as they're able to help kind of cut down on that cost of renovation. But they don't receive title until they're done with the work. So, they'll sign their agreement to start the work. They'll pull all their permits, do the work, do their inspections to close out those permits, and we'll do some inspections along the way with them as well. And then once the work is done, that title transfers to the homeowner. So this is a little bit different for most agents because we haven't often listed these on the MLS in the past. It's kind of a recent thing that we've done. But essentially on the MLS, we list the properties at fair market value. And usually that value is fairly low because these are distressed properties, but they do go up on the MLS and our website, which is where we were always marketing them before we started listing them with realtors. And on the MLS, we'll share all the specific program requirements for purchasers. So whatever a buyer's agent might need to know, including the application process, the renovation specs, or the list of repairs, we always upload that. We'll include details about the process. So, first buyers submit an application. From there, they do their showing in person, and then they can submit an offer and sign off on the scope of work and then sign their agreement and start with the renovation. So all of that is in the MLS, so every agent can see it. We upload all kinds of documents, including like some FAQs about the program descriptions, the application, waivers, all that kind of stuff that they might need if they're showing one of these homes. In the past, we've always offered a flat fee commission for agents. And so really that's just due to the fact that the purchase prices are relatively low on these. So the flat fee usually is equal to what an agent might expect at 2.5% or 3%. And also because the process is a little bit different for this program, the land bank stays pretty involved. We're there for the showings. We prepare the purchase agreement and stuff like that. So the buyer's agent can kind of be as involved as they want to be in the process, but the land bank can handle a big bulk of the transaction for this one. But the MLS really getting out there is really great marketing for us and for our program. And every buyer that comes through, whether they're an owner occupant or an investor for this program, follows the same process, regardless of what they plan to do. Investors can rent it out, they can sell it, but they still follow the same process as an owner occupant buyer for the most part. Sometimes we'll list them like for the first 30 days for owner occupants only. And then after that, investors can start doing their showings and make an offer if they're interested. But otherwise, everyone follows the same process that is outlined pretty well in the MLS. So then sometimes we do a little bit of affordable housing where we have some grant funding or, we're working in a specific area where our purchase prices are limited. So these are usually like a renovation or new construction that we've done. And we've almost always listed these in the MLS, and it's really much more simpler than deed and escrow, even though there are restrictions on the sales price, and usually there's restrictions on buyer income as well. So say we're renovating a house, we're selling it as an affordable house, so maybe we're capped at $125,000. Then we'll also put an income restriction on there that the buyer has to be below, say, 80% area median income. That's based on their family size. So the income cap varies based on, if you're a 2-person household or a 4-person household, and so on and so forth. And also varies by city or county. But all of that information is posted in the MLS as well. And in addition to the income limits, there's usually some kind of owner occupancy requirement as well. So, we have to sell the home to an owner occupant, and they would have to reside there for a certain number of years. And that's usually enforced by maybe like a deed restriction, or maybe a second mortgage that's forgivable over a certain number of years, or even as simple as some kind of signed certification that they intend to occupy the property for a certain amount of time. So when we're listing these homes in the MLS, it's really much more simple than deed and escrow. We post income restrictions in there. The properties are listed at the sales price that we're kind of maxing out at usually. And any information on owner occupancy is in there. So if there's something you need to sign, or if there's a deed restriction, we upload all of that to the MLS. So any buyer's agent can see it in there and know what the program requirements are. And otherwise, they sell just like any other, traditional home you might see on the MLS, where we list them. Agents can schedule showings, they can submit an offer, and go from there. They'll do their appraisal and the appraisal inspection, and it closes out just like almost any other home you would see, aside from maybe a deed restriction for owner occupancy or something like that, and maybe checking income as well. And last, for our programs, is renovation and new construction. So these are homes that we are renovating or building in-house. These are pretty simple as far as listing on the MLS. Basically, we build the house or we renovate it. Once it's complete, we list it for sale. There's no restriction on occupancy, no restrictions on buyer income or anything like that. And the purchase process is similar to anything you might see in the MLS already. Agents make an offer, they schedule showings, and it just closes out from there. So I'll share a little bit about what we've learned from using realtors. It's been pretty beneficial, I would say, for us as the land bank, mostly because agents come with a lot of expertise, including neighborhood expertise. So they know what buyers are looking for. They know what homes are out there are selling for, what they look like. They come with access to the MLS, which includes tons of sales data. I know Sonia will talk a little bit more about that, and all kinds of reports and tools that they can run for you to kind of hone in on pricing. I would say most agents come with a buyer pipeline of some sort, either through their team or through their office or something like that they've built up. And the marketing has really been a big thing for us as well, giving us greater exposure to potential buyers. We see this, I think, the most with deed and escrow, because we started listing those on the MLS more recently. But the MLS feeds out to all the other websites that maybe buyers without agents would see, like Zillow and realtor.com, homes.com, stuff like that. So not only are we getting calls from agents who maybe didn't know that we existed and didn't know we were selling properties because they were on our website only before, but now they see them on the MLS, or buyers without agents see them on these websites and can reach out. And now they know that, these homes exist, and maybe they even found out that we exist for the first time. So the marketing of the MLS has been a huge thing for us, I would say. And agents also come with their own marketing strategies, events and open houses, photos, staging, whatever it might be. And you can talk to your agents about that as you begin to work with them. The last few things that I'll mention about benefits of using Realtor include networking. So many agents come with lenders that they know who offer assistance programs, including down payment assistance or closing cost assistance. So that's been helpful to us. And they come with all the paperwork as well and know how to solve any problems that might pop up during the transaction, including things that come up during inspections or financing issues that might come up, or other buyer concerns. Take some of that off of your plate. And I think another major thing with using a realtor is the transparency that's involved. Previously, for deed and escrow, and maybe further back for some of the other programs, the homes were really just on our website, and you kind of had to know about us to know that they existed out there. But listening on the MLS with all the programs out there adds transparency to the process. And everyone follows the same fair process, every buyer, whether you're an owner occupant or an investor. So it's all out there for everyone to see. There's no thought of like, oh, the land bank only sells to, these people or something like that. It's all out there for every buyer to see. Um, and our homes tend to sell faster, especially through deed and escrow. We found that they sell faster on the MLS just because we have all that marketing out there. And it saves us time in the long run because your agent is out there answering questions and doing showings if they need to and working with buyers agents. And it's something that, you don't have to do. They work out there for you. So what we usually look for in a realtor, is the biggest thing probably is local knowledge. So if we're working in a specific neighborhood or something like that, or side of town, we'll look for an agent who kind of knows that area. They know what the values look like. They know what homes are selling for, what buyers are looking for, and they have experience selling in that location. We'll also look at what marketing strategy they will bring along with what we plan to do or what we'd like to do. So that might include all kinds of different things like social media or events. We've done continuing education classes and all kinds of different events and stuff with our teams. And, you can work with your agent to determine, what they want to do, but also what you would like them to help you with, as part of their contract with you. We've also looked at a buyer pipeline that they might have. So relationships with lenders that might bring buyers or relationships with other agents through their offices or their teams. And what our commission structure will look like has been a big part of this. Sometimes for deed and escrow, the flat fee might not be appealing to every agent, but it's a discussion that we have with every agent that we work with, what that commission will be and what we will pay on the sale end as well. But we also make sure to be clear about any specific requirements we may have, things that we want included in the listing, things that we want uploaded in the supplements of the listing, documents that explain the programs, or things like that, and how we want our properties marketed. Those are big things that we're pretty heavily involved with, at least initially when working with a new agent. So I think really the things to remember are your agent that you choose, if you're working with someone, is that they work for you. They are there to work in their client's best interest. So if there are aspects of your program that, that are non-negotiables for you, then that's your program and those agents work for you. If they don't want to abide by it, then, you find someone else or something. But we really are very clear about specific program requirements when we list in the MLS and with agents so that they know how to describe our programs to buyers and they're comfortable answering calls from buyers or their agents about how the program may work. And we always set expectations up front for services, including what marketing we'd like, and how we communicate and negotiate once we get into that stage of the transaction. But ultimately, you can work with your agent to determine what you want them to do, what they want to do, and what the cost will be for those services. So I think that's it for me. But Sonia will share a little bit more about buyer side, how buyers agents can work with the land banks.
Michelle, real quick before we move on to Sonia, we had two questions that I was just going to jump real quick. Some of the issues with selling in Cleveland and their new point of sale requirements, as well as lead inspections and disclosures.
We point of sale. We have not had any issues with that yet. But much of what we're, deed and escrow is kind of a newer thing on the MLS for us, but a lot of what we're selling is renovated or newly built. So it hasn't come into play there at all. And for deed and escrow, the buyer is doing the work, so they'd be responsible for correcting any repairs that may come up.
It still wouldn't transfer until the repairs were done, so it wouldn't be looking at point of sale until transfer.
And then Amy, if you want to ask your deed and escrow questions now while Michelle is on it.
Yeah, thank you. So you touched upon the deed and escrow and what that looks like for a traditional buyer to get in and live in the home. But then you also mentioned this is open to investors, and sometimes you limit that time frame on when the investor can actually buy, like maybe it's a month or 2 months out for buyers who are owner occupants to get those homes first. But what does that look like if you open that up to an investor? So are you basically like, you own the property, they have the list of repairs, they're funding the repairs with their money, or you guys are funding the repairs and then they purchase it at the end? Like, can you go more into depth of what that looks like for an investor?
So
Also, I'm
the,
looking on your website to see the properties that maybe aren't on the MLS. And I had a couple questions about like the classifications of the properties that could be available for something like this.
So for deed and escrow, the buyer always funds the repairs, whether they're an owner occupant or an investor.
Okay,
The major difference is for usually we have a 30-day hold for owner occupants. So for the first 30 days, only owner occupants can do showings and submit offers. Um, and like title doesn't transfer until the repairs are complete. So they'll put their money into the repair, but it won't transfer until the repairs are
okay.
complete.
And then whenever it transfers, they're getting funding from the traditional bank, or are you guys offering funding as well?
We don't offer any funding, so if they're purchasing a property from us, they would need to come with their own funding for the repair. It gets a
Okay.
little tricky because most lenders don't like the fact that they don't own the property while they're working on it.
Correct. So they probably, if they're an investor, going to use like private money or something.
Or yeah, cash. Anything that doesn't put a lien on the property probably would most likely work, but most loans put a lien on the property.
Yeah, private lending would put a lien on the property too. So they have to have some cash or borrow it from a family member. And then
Mhm.
whenever the deed transfers, then they're getting the loan from the traditional bank to buy it from you.
No,
Right.
they would they put the purchase price in escrow up front.
Okay, but it's not like you're just going to be under contract for a long time.
Yes, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. And then on the website, I'm looking at the whole list of things, and there's a couple that I was unsure of what these meant. Renovation underway, not available. Okay, so somebody probably has those, working on them. And then
So,
structure, not available. What is
so
that?
For this individual questions in regards to specific properties, I'm gonna have Michelle follow up with you. I have your email, so I will have her follow up and give you a description of each of the properties and the types.
And really, that's my only question, is that structure not available? I work with a lot of investors, so this was like intriguing to me. So that's why I'm digging into more of that.
yeah.
It seems like it's a cool, like a really unique, cool opportunity.
A short answer is probably that so if we're renovating a home or building a home, like I said, we don't sell it until it's complete. So that's why I might say under renovation, not available, because we're working on it and not selling it until it's complete. For other ones that maybe say it's a structure not available, it might be something that we've just recently brought in.
Okay.
And we haven't done like our field service or anything on it yet. So we haven't made it available to the public yet.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Now it's your turn.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, well, good afternoon. I am clicking all kinds of things here. So I am Sonia Edwards. I'm the executive director and broker for Realty Reimagined, which is the in-house brokerage that Michelle is referencing here at the Cuyahoga County Land Bank. So I have been doing real estate for 30 years now and have been doing nonprofit real estate since 2014. And I'll get into a little bit of how and why that happened, which will take us into how we work together, and maybe we'll help some of you as agents that are looking to work more in the nonprofit world, but also some of you that are on here that are land banks or CDCs that are looking to work more with agents. Maybe I can help bridge some of that. So our mission is to reimagine real estate today and transform lives tomorrow, one person, one home, and one neighborhood at a time. So here's our model. Our model is we have staffed agents who are paid salary with benefits, which is, unheard of in the real estate world. What they earn in commissions that come in, we as the brokerage keep 100% of the commissions that are earned. So those agents do not earn any commissions, they just earn their salary and benefits. And then on the other side, you'll see we have contract agents, which, is typically what you see in the world of real estate. Some of those agents are employees of land banks and CDCs and other nonprofits, and some are just, everyday agents that we all see every day in the world, maybe not tied specifically to a land bank.
There's no slide.
There's no slide up there?
Yeah.
It just says thank you.
Here,
I think Michelle
Okay.
needs to stop sharing.
yeah, I'll stop share and restart.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, guys.
Okay.
You guys see it now?
Got it.
Okay. All right. So there you go. So there it is. So the one side you'll see again, the staffed agents who are paid salary, we keep their commission. And then the other side are those contract agents. We have a flat fee that's like a sliding scale for the brokerage side of fees. We don't charge desk fees. We have no other fees that we charge our agents. And then, like I said, it's a very small flat fee that ranges from $250 to $1,000 based on those sale prices. And that's kind of how we stay within the realm of nonprofit when we pay out commissions. And then our long-term strategy within the next 3 to 5 years is to have a workforce development program, but that has nothing to do with today. Just wanted you to kind of know that was floating out there. So why that model? So like I said, we started the first nonprofit real estate company in 2014. Was working in foreclosure prior to that and started some of the education around getting proactive around getting buyers ready. Still found a need to help really throughout the transaction. Counseling and education wasn't enough. We tried in 2014 to launch the first nonprofit and really just struggled with staffing from the beginning. We struggled with finding the capacity to service buyers in particular neighborhoods. We struggled with finding the right agents. And I know there's a lot of agents on here, so don't get mad at me, but I've been doing this for 30 years, so I think I have the right to say this because I've been doing it with you. But it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks, right? So when you've been doing things a certain way for a long time, trying to change that mindset was hard for us when we thought we could get someone maybe nearing retirement who would want to do this as maybe, something as they got to there wasn't working for us. We tried straight out of school. They thought they were going to get rich quick in Ohio in real estate, and we had to teach them real fast. That's not Ohio real estate. So that didn't work either. Middle of the road, kind of lost motivation to close a deal. Just pure transparency with you of what we were dealing with what we were finding. And so we kind of went dormant for a little while. We kept it going, but it wasn't as strong. We were building a bunch of other programs out. But we kept thinking of who is it that can help us be able to move this forward? Who's like-minded, who's mission-driven, who uses real estate professional, who knows the neighborhoods better than anyone else, right? Who's passionate about community revitalization, who's looking maybe to supplement some income in their organizations, and who's looking for unrestricted funding. And it was a no-brainer. It was the land banks and CDCs. It was the community development corporations and land banks. That's who is doing all of these same things that we were doing, just a little bit differently. And so what was the model? How could we bridge these things and make a difference? And so what we do now is we license agents who are employees at community development corporations, land banks, and other nonprofits across the state. So as Michelle was talking as an employee of the land bank, and she's saying what's required in the MLS, and she's also can go in there and look because she's also a licensed agent. And she does, by the way, go in there and look and make sure that the agents that they hire do go in there and put all of those supplements, that need to be in there. And you'll often see Michelle's name as the agent listed because that's also one of the creative things that we're able to do is when the land bank needs to save a little bit more money, they can use Michelle under the brokerage and pay even a smaller cut and use her to handle the transaction. So when money's tight on the house goes over on construction or over on a renovation, there may be a little bit of wiggle room there where Michelle then ends up being that listing agent in the system, right? Where that might have been the plan, might not have been the plan to begin with. But this helps us improve, housing stability by linking mission-aligned agencies. We have neighborhood specialists. So when we have an agent at a particular CDC who knows that neighborhood, it just helps us get better. This helps generate some unrestricted revenue and reduces cost. And the way that it does that is by reducing those costs in what those agencies were paying in commission, by saving time and capacity, and now paying a very small fee in commission. If they're doing a lot of houses a year, and we do have some organizations that are doing a lot of houses a year, if they're saving 2,000 to 3,000 or more per house, and they do 10, 15, 20 houses a year, that adds up to be a lot of money. So that's where that other revenue and unrestricted revenue and costs are coming in. And then we get a small, transaction fee from each one, which helps us keep going. And the bulk of our commission, from us, if there's any extra commissions that come in obviously only goes to the agent because we know the laws. We do not pay anyone but the agent who earns the commission. So that's kind of the structure of what we do and how we do. Here's just a quick, we have people that do it. Here's the agents that we have kind of across the state. So from our perspective, as an agent who's been doing this for a while, working with a lot of different land banks and CDCs across the state, right? All have different rules, all have different programs. First thing I have figured out is if you want to work with one of the nonprofits, whether it be a land bank, a CDC, or even a government agency, I've worked with different government entities throughout my career. Check with them. Look on their websites, call them. Most likely they have some kind of vendor registration application, something where you can get on some kind of either newsletter, you can get an application that gets you qualified to be considered to be an agent for them. If you get on one of their sites and then maybe they have a request for proposals because they're going to actually put out something to have you bid to be an agent for maybe a big project. That's how you're going to find out about those things. So you're going to need to get on their websites or be in communication. That's why it's also good to just be on their newsletters, find out what they're doing. But the other thing is then once you do that, if you want to stay there, follow their rules. They have their rules for a reason. Sometimes to us, they don't make sense, but we deal with that all the time, right? Because we deal with rules that don't make sense too. So they have their rules for a reason. And the last thing you want to do is not follow their rules, right? Because they're not going to want to continue to use you. Read, read, read. Michelle says they put everything in the supplements. Read before you call and ask a question because it frustrates them. If you are the agent that calls and asks to see a property that says very clearly that you have to do A, B, and C before you can see that property, please do A, B, and C first because you've already made them mad if you've called and tried to schedule around A, B, and C, or think that special rules apply to you. Those will be the things that will not help you work so well with those nonprofits. And then just be willing to learn, right? We all should be willing to learn every day. And unfortunately, rules change, programs change, funding streams change, and every time any of those things change, so does everything else. So we have to constantly be willing to learn and relearn and navigate as programs change. And so that's, be nimble. That's helped me go a long way. Habitat for Humanity, they don't really do a lot with us as far as agents go in the system, but as buyers agents, who now your buyers should be paying you commission, work with Habitat for Humanity. Get out there and learn some of these programs because if that buyer is going to pay you no matter what, isn't it your job to find them the best deal for them? And it might be Habitat. And we probably shied away as agents before because they didn't come up in our inventory and we weren't sure how we were going to get paid. Well, the landscape looks a little different now. This could be the best option for your buyer, and now explore it. Find out about it, especially when inventory is so tight. Inventory is really tight for affordable housing. Habitats across the country are building and renovating houses that are affordable all the time. So learn your local habitat, learn what they're doing. I'm willing to help if you're in any of my areas that I service. I'm very familiar with most of our habitat programs. We are someone that can help get your buyers ready for those programs. If you have a buyer that maybe isn't quite ready, we have those programs that can help you. We do not take anyone's buyers. We'll help you keep your buyer and get them into one of these programs. But another great program that we just maybe don't think about because it doesn't pop up for us in the MLS. CHN is another one. Community Housing Network Partners is another one that has great programs. And we just might not be thinking about that, right? All different kinds of programs. And sometimes these programs might be for your sellers and maybe not for your buyers. Maybe your seller has to sell or they're aging out of the home that they're in and you need to find them somewhere to go so you can sell that house for them. This is sometimes when those nonprofit partners are also just great partners to have, to know how do you help give that older adult a soft landing when you're trying to get them out of the home they're in so you can get that house sold for them. But requirements, Michelle talked a lot about requirements. We have to follow the requirements, and it's hard. I guess as an agent, you have to ask yourself, is this the space that you want to be in? Right? Do you really want to work with nonprofits? Because if you do, you're probably going to be working with maybe low to moderate income families, most likely, unless you're selling the beautiful new construction or high-end renovation properties that the land banks are doing across the country, then that's different. But if you're really looking at some of these more affordable housing programs, you're going to be working with people who are low to moderate income, and they're going to need a little bit more hand holding. They're going to have to follow some more strict requirements. They're going to have to turn in a lot more documentation to get maybe down payment assistance, different things. They're going to need your help. So if you're willing to do the hand holding, which it's worth it, I recommend you hand hold and you get them to the end. They're going to remember you. You're going to sell houses to 3 and 4 generations down the road if you do that and you do it right. But it does take a little bit more work. So, but you have to ask yourself, are you willing? Is that something that you want to do? Some agents, it's not for them. Others love it. So just know that before you get into it. Don't get into it if you're not willing to see it through, because they need you. And then why is it important to work together? I think that we all probably know this. If you've seen any of the work, the land banks, the CDCs, the nonprofits, they're not working in, Beechwood, right? They're not working in the high-end neighborhoods. That's not their job. That's not their role. Their role is to come into the challenged communities, right? To come in and help revitalize the neighborhoods that we're still trying to revitalize from the last crisis, right? That's where the work is. And so what we see is when they do those new constructions or those higher end renovations, or even some of the just standard renovations, they're pushing those market prices. They're often the highest priced property in the neighborhood. You'll see, I know the Cuyahoga Land Bank strategy is often to do 3 or 4 of those properties in one particular neighborhood. The hope is to get those comps so that a traditional builder can come behind them and keep that work moving forward, or a traditional investor can come behind and keep those renovations moving forward. And then the land bank can move on to the next neighborhood that needs them the most. But before, when these properties were not in the MLS, that data wasn't in there. It wasn't in there for us to pull for our sellers when we're trying to figure out comps. It wasn't in there for those appraisers when they need them to be able to justify our sale prices when we start to sell a little bit higher. And they can hold significant inventory. When the housing shortages were happening, and I mean, we still don't have a tremendous amount of inventory. I didn't face those as much as the traditional agent did, because I had inventory with all of our land banks and CDCs. I didn't feel that crunch as much, and I knew what was coming down the pipeline. I knew what properties they had in the coming soons, in the under constructions, that I could start to think of things for buyers that we had in our pipeline. So these are really important relationships, I think, on both sides, whether you're on here and you're a land bank or a community development corporation or a nonprofit that's looking to work with an agent, or you're an agent who's looking to work the other direction. I think that we all need to work together. This is important work for all of us, and it's important that we do it together. I think that's it for me, Michelle. That's it for me.
Thank you, Sonia. We had one question. Who is responsible for income verification to meet the affordability requirements? And I think that could be for either of you.
So as the agent, it's been our job to turn it into whoever. So if it's like the land bank, then we get a bit over to them and then they verify it.
So the final verifications.
The final verification is the organization.
But we always make it very clear what those limits are based on your family size and MLS.
Do you guys have any sample agreements for using a broker that you would be willing to share?
Yes.
Yes. Perfect. All right. Mr. Book is up next.
Okay, Veronica, can you start sharing? While Veronica's working on that, first off, thank you for having us. Todd Book, legal counsel for the Ohio Realtor Association. I'll be joined here by Veronica Cardello, the Assistant Vice President of External Engagement, and she has a program she's been working extensively on over the last several months that she wants to highlight for you all to discuss. But just wanted to kind of get into, I was asked to be part of this to help discuss maybe legal issues as it relates to engaging with a realtor as a land bank association. And first off, I wanted to just kind of point out, and I think Michelle has mentioned a lot of this stuff, but a lot of my members are on this call, so I want to brag on them while they're on here. Some of the things that they do and they bring to a transaction. And one is professionalism. This is their job. This is how they make a living, is trying to sell properties. So they know about those disclosures that were discussed. They know the business. They know their markets. So if you have a piece of property that you're trying to sell as a land bank, a realtor is a pretty good place to start that discussion. I know we can talk a little bit more about some of the different types of properties involved, but if you're lucky enough to be a land bank that has one of those properties where you're wanting to maximize your dollar, which is not always the case, but in that situation, a realtor is definitely someone you want to be engaged with. There's also the benefit with using a realtor of transparency. I know some land banks I've heard concerned about, they always seem to sell to the same people, or there's a question about, well, why did this person get to buy this property and not me? Was there some type of favoritism going on? By using a realtor, the realtor has the ability to put it out on the MLS, to use all of the market. So there's not that question for folks in the community to say, did the land bank not fully expose this property to everyone that could potentially purchase the property? So you expand your transparency. It also increases the visibility going along with that. The MLS, the other exposures that the realtor can provide to the advertising and marketing that they use, as well as a lot of buyers, as Michelle mentioned, do have a regular group of buyers that they work with that are looking for properties. So they bring some potential buyers with them as they come to these transactions. And as I mentioned, if you are in a situation of a land bank where you're trying to maximize a potential return on a piece of property, a realtor is a great way to engage and try to maximize that money. I know that there was a discussion about sample listing agreements and things. We at Ohio Realtors do not have one, but Sonia did mention that they have something they can share. That'd be great. I just mentioned that it also needs to be reflective. If you're working with a realtor or with any licensee in Ohio, that licensing agreement has to discuss how commissions are going to be paid and that those commissions are not set by law. So that's a new requirement that was just passed in House Bill 466, that you want to make sure that that listing agreement that you do have with any realtor meets all of the new requirements that were just passed and just became law at the end of last year. Next, we get questions about, can land banks even do this? Is it reasonable or is expected for realtors to be even engaged in the land bank process? And the answer to that is a resounding yes. Under Ohio Revised Code 172402, land banks have the ability to contract with for-profit or nonprofit entities to carry out the purposes of the land bank. And one of the purposes of the land bank is to acquire and to sell properties. So you do have the ability as a land bank to engage with realtors. And I would even go so far to say it's expected, whenever this legislation was passed, that real estate professionals would be involved in the discussion. As you know, with land banks, there's a certain number of county commissioners and the treasurer is involved, but there's also other people in the community that can be part of the land bank board. And in the code section discusses that at least one board member shall have private sector or nonprofit experience in rehabilitation or real estate acquisitions. So the legislature saw the need to have real estate professionals involved in this land bank process and actually wrote it into the code. And I'm glad to see Sheila Crane from Montgomery County on the phone today that is very much involved in the land bank over in Montgomery County. So, and she's also a realtor. Next slide there, Veronica. I would say that if you are going to try to work with realtors as a land bank, most land banks have policies in place about how they acquire property and how they dispose of property. Look over your bylaws or your code of regulations in that regard. Make sure that they have the necessary language in there that gives you that authority to engage with realtors or licensed real estate folks to be able to take on the realtor world. You also in that, as you're looking at that to make sure that that language is in there, we get questions about how would you engage with a realtor. I know Sonia's group is the nonprofit. Land banks could theoretically, they could have a bid process. They could put out into the realtors in their community or, in the state or however they want to do it, saying, we have properties we want to sell and we would like to engage a realtor in our community to do that and ask for bids. What are you going to charge to be the provider of real estate services for the land bank if we would need to call upon you? Or you could do it on a one-off basis, just as, go around and maybe use different realtors depending upon the situation. But that would be up to the board to make that determination and have that discretion in that regard. Some issues that are common with land bank deals that may be uncommon with your typical real estate transactions. And for this is really kind of aimed at the realtors out there, in the sense that, most realtors are trying to maximize the dollar for their client, right? They're trying to find the highest price. If they're the listing agent, if they're the buying agent representing the buyers, then they're trying to find the best price for their client. In this situation where you'll be working with the seller, most likely as the land bank, the desire in that situation may be a little bit different, obviously, and there's going to be some things going on in these transactions that you don't normally see in a typical real estate transaction. So we talked about deed and escrows. The most similar thing in in the realtor world would be like a life estate or a lease with an option to purchase, something along those lines. So, but it's a little bit of a different structure. There's also regularly secondary mortgages that are put on properties where the land bank will have a mortgage on the property to make sure that certain things are taken care of by this new buyer in the transaction. You can also typically see reversionary clauses where if the buyer doesn't do certain things like they're supposed to or they agreed to, the property could revert back to the land bank. And that's something you don't normally see in a typical real estate transaction. Also, as you go through the process with the land bank, there's a lot more strings attached. And just for one example, on the Welcome Home Ohio project, the different projects there's a lot of strings attached associated with using that program or using other programs in the land bank world. So as realtors, be aware that this is not your typical transaction, and also be aware as realtors that there's some money to be made here, but a lot of times you're doing this not because you want to maximize your dollar, but you're trying to provide a service for the community, and that's something that's great that people should take advantage of. So those are just some of the things to be aware of as realtors. We do get questions about fair housing. As you know, under Ohio and federal law, you can't discriminate based upon race, color, religion, sex, familial status, ancestry, military status, disability, or national origin. Some people say, well, how would you have fair housing violations in this situation? Income or being a income restriction is not considered a protected class. And you also, and normally most of these situations, it's state sanctioned preferences for people to meet certain income requirements. So generally, if you have these income restrictions on the sale of property, it is not a fair housing issue, but obviously we always want to be on the lookout to see if there's other situations that would qualify that could possibly be an example of fair housing violations, because we do not want discrimination to occur in Ohio in any regards. So that was things I wanted to talk about and kind of bring you up to speed on. I'll now turn over to Veronica Cardello to talk about something that we've been working on at the Ohio Realtors as it relates to trying to expand housing opportunities for folks, and also to help communities in their efforts to expand housing opportunities.
Thanks, Todd. So what we did is about 3 years ago, Ohio Realtors worked with the Greater Ohio Policy Center to kind of do a deep analysis as to what Ohio was really facing in the housing crisis. So what we found in those 3 years is that housing production has slowed, prices have surged, community leaders are searching for different tools to address these changes effectively. So we put our thinking caps on, worked together with a well-rounded group of organizations all across the state, and we came up with this guidebook that we call the Ohio Pattern Book. I've been calling it the Ohio Pattern Book of Housing. Other people have been calling it just the Pattern Book. So it has many names, many faces, but it is all one and the same, I promise. So this guidebook that we've been putting together has been very comprehensive in the sense of we've been looking for different solutions to all the different issues that we have been facing. Out of this guidebook, we are going to offer 3 voluntary tools for local governments, developers, land banks, and homeowners that they can use to promote infill housing across all of Ohio. So these tools can be applied individually or in a combination to overcome the barriers to housing development that you see with vacant lots and well-established neighborhoods. These 3 different tools are zoning adjustments or recommendations for a municipality, free building plans that we have worked very diligently on to design, and then a roadmap for pre-approved plans for municipalities to adopt. So I'll get into the details a little bit more here. So who really should be using this guide? This guide is really tailored to a diverse audience to help ensure that community development is accessible and readily available to everyone. So local governments, land banks, for-profit developers, homeowners that are aspiring small scale developers or looking for cost-conscious yet high-quality design solutions, and community advocates that are aiming to better understand infill development strategies, but also to better their community. We found that those folks that are looking to use this guidebook are well-rounded, and they're really trying to address attainable, affordable housing. So what is infill development? Infill development involves building new homes on vacant or underutilized lots within existing neighborhoods. Building new housing on infill sites offers significant benefits within Ohio. We're talking about revitalizing neighborhoods, transforming vacant lots, getting rid of eyesores. Some people have taken the reins and thought, hey, I'm going to try and put a house on this vacant lot that sits between 2 of these other houses to help keep the home lines in stretch. So we're really aiming to preserve our natural spaces and redirect our growth to conserve our farmland and natural spaces, but also focus on that infill housing because it's already there. It already has the infrastructure within it to help build the housing. And when I say infrastructure, I'm talking about utility lines and things like that. It's already there, ready to go. So when we're talking about infill development, we can't not talk about zoning and how zoning actually can help. And this is not impeding anybody's development on zoning. It's more of just trying to figure out how zoning codes can often hinder new housing production by restricting the development of the different types of housing and that the market demands. So we're really trying to focus on areas of practical sense when we're talking about zoning adjustments or low-hanging fruit adjustments that really make sense, such as lot sizes and setback lines, or housing type restrictions. Sometimes an area of a community is zoned R1, R2, C1, C2. These are all different types that may hinder that development, and we're really trying to help promote it. So when we're talking about these practical developments or practical zoning adjustments, we're really talking about just straightforward zoning changes that local governments can use or are thinking about making sure that they have in place so that infill development can take place. It really offers all of the residents a more attractive neighborhood characteristic type if we can really focus on those vacant lots and those dilapidated properties. So what are pre-approved plans? So the pre-approved plans idea came into fruition because it really focuses on using the residential building code to help focus on the number of building permits that a community has been issuing. So pre-approval programs really streamline the permitting process by offering a curated portfolio or pre-designed housing plan that is tailored to that specific community. So we wanted to make sure that when we were making these recommendations that it was really something that we wanted to focus on the community's needs rather than saying, hey, if you do this, this may happen. It's not really, it may happen. It's more of if you do this, we're really focused on reducing the costs, expediting the approvals, and encouraging new construction in your area. So how can these free plans help? With the rising cost of construction, labor costs, new development has become increasingly expensive. It's something that we've seen not just in Ohio, but all across the nation. So our goal with this guidebook is really to design these plans so that we're lowering the cost by eliminating the architectural and design fees that you would normally accrue, but also focusing on the infill development. So when we're talking about focusing on the infill development, we're talking about focusing on all of the different vacant spaces or the eyesores. So those are two of the things out of the whole 3 years we've found that if we narrow our focus on, then we can really help promote new development, but reducing those costs that are typically incurred by the builder. So flexibility and cost savings have been quite honestly astounding. So in our guidebook, the 2 free building plans are going to encompass a single family home and a duplex. Each are going to have multiple variations to suit the builder and the resident's preferences. So again, giving the community the ability to build these homes, but also giving them the flexibility that they need for their community. So I keep telling everybody I'm not focused on what the house looks like on the outside. I'm more focused on the structure on the inside. When it comes to cost savings, by using these plans, a developer can save a lot of like several $1,000s in soft costs per project. We have talked to folks all across the nation that have already implemented pre-approved building plans, and they have seen significant savings in particular areas that you wouldn't necessarily think of. So these 2 free plans are presented in our pattern book of housing. It's a home for small parcels. The first building plan is a narrow single family house. As you can see by this architectural rendering, it has an optional 3rd bedroom. It is sized to match the most historic plats in Ohio communities. And then the second one is a front back duplex of any neighborhood. This is my favorite one because the second building is a duplex with a larger unit in the front and 2 options for the rear unit. The 2 units in the rear can be arranged so that you both get a front door to the street and a private rear entrance. So the other thing that I love about this is, and like I said, my favorite thing about this one is that if you want to convert the back dwelling to a 3rd room or a 4th room, you absolutely can. So the plan itself is actually designed to be that versatile, so you don't have to worry. But if you have like a teenager that needs some space, or if you have an in-law that needs to live with you, this is a really great design for those scenarios. So our implementation is going very well. In the upcoming months, we actually have a robust media campaign that we are beginning to implement and reveal the pattern book. Like I said, that we have been working, this has been 3 years in the works. So this includes revealing a website for local governments to visit and download the pattern book materials are going to be finalized within the next 2 weeks. I'm very excited about that. We will be releasing that shortly. We're also going to be working with our elected officials to get it out as much as possible. I know I've been working with Sean in the Land Bank Association, so it will be provided to you guys as well. And we will be also presenting at the Land Bank Conference in April. So with that being said, I want to thank you very much for your time, and I'm sure we have questions.